Now let's get back to Clay Doyle, who is the Vice President for Transmission and Distribution at El Paso Electric. I had just asked him earlier about what are the threats to the operation of your electric power locally, say at the utility scale level. And then I can think of about three things that are a problem in the large, like covering the country. And what do you think is one of the things that keeps you worried?
So I guess if I think on that scale, one of the things that the West Connect, which is a little sub-region of the Western Electric Coordinating Council, and the grid operators are always concerned with is the frequency of the grid, the maintaining. I guess, so let me kind of explain how that works. So all of these generators and all these transmission lines are interconnected. So if you have a big event, a big interruption, I think in 2013 or 14 there was a big substation failure in Southern California that every utility that's connected to the Western grid saw it. We have our recorders, and we record on the frequency at level 60 cycles per second, so we can see disturbances. And what the coordinating council and what the system operators are concerned with is that if you had a big enough event, and so it drags down basically the frequency, and they're concerned that every utility is resilient when events happen that are not necessarily in our service territory or in our control area, because you can have an event like this one in Southern California that dipped the frequency for a certain amount of time, and their question is your system robust enough and hardy enough to rather than decay quickly when you have an event on frequency, but also to support it and maintain the balance. So that's one of the things, that things get more and more interconnected. And we have a lot of solar and other renewable energy come online. What we're starting to see, and it's a big topic in IEEE and Edison Electric Institute and most of the universities that study these kind of things, is what we lose with solar fixed panel generation and even with wind, because of the way it's tied to the grid, is you lose the inertia of the system. And it's kind of like if you had all these machines and they're all rolling at the same time in the rate speed, if you lose one, the frequency stays. You don't lose any speed. But that's because there's a lot of rotating mass with all these machines.
Right, the biggest machine in the world.
The biggest machine in the world. And you have these things running, and there's a lot of mass there. Well, as you move away to solar energy, there's no mass there. It is
right.
It's generating at a DC voltage, then it's converted through an inverter to AC, and you can get some inertia support there, but it's through electronics.
Right.
And we're still working through all that. So the expanse of the grid, the use of the grid, is both exciting and challenging at this point, because we're looking to the future of having more renewable energy in terms of the price of solar keeps dropping.
Right.
And then we're on the edge of the explosion of electric vehicles, which is more demand on the grid.
Yes.
And so just the use of the grid is, it's concerning, but it's fun.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an intellectual challenge that sometimes gives you horrifying ideas, but working through them is satisfying and useful, more than useful.
Oh, it's exciting time to be in the industry.
Okay, so solar storms are one thing that I've heard people worry about, because when 1988 or something, a solar storm knocked out the Quebec hydro grid, and that spread to the eastern U.S.
Right. So you can have these natural disturbances that happen, earthquakes and things like that happen, right?
Yeah.
Knock out huge sections of the grid, and if it's a section where there's huge generation, everybody's kind of dependent on that.
Right.
You think of Hoover Dam, and you think of these other big generating stations, nuclear generating plants, and you lose one of those, and everybody feels it.
Right.
And it might not be so bad in the wintertime for us because our load is not as great as in the summertime.
Right.
It kind of depends on when it happens, right?
Sure. And the other thing, of course, is cyber attacks. Everybody talks about that.
You know, that, Vince, and you and I haven't had a chance to talk about that very much, but that...
Well, now it is.
Yeah, it's time to talk about it. What is really exciting about our industry after, 115 years of kind of doing the same thing and not minimal progress, but just, it was a kind of an old industry.
Right.
But now we're seeing with these embedded devices and systems, with electric vehicles, with solar systems, inverters, it's changing a lot of the things that we do and the way we do it. And for a number of years, we've all been dealing with computers, right?
Right.
And we had this digital revolution started in the 90s with the internet, and everybody is, our kids are well versed in all the modern technology and how we do these things. What is the major difference that's happening to our industry is everything before was all informational technology. It was computer. You were worried about your cybersecurity on your computer and your password and business information and private information, and you're worried about data and information.
Right.
And that's what cybersecurity grew up around, and so it was all protecting that. What is new, and that is new to the industry, and different utilities are different levels of progress on this, but is what we call operational technology. So before, with informational technology, it was all about the interconnect of electronics and the sharing of data and the protecting of data. What is different with operational technologies, now you not only have information and data, but you also have control. So in theory, if that ramps up your whole world of cybersecurity protection, because I can have devices at substations, at generators, and at other places that are connected. They're connected through the grid, or they're connected, they're cyber connected.
Right.
And so potentially you could have bad actors get in there and open breakers or shut down generators or do any number of malicious things.
Isn't that why when you were getting the phase shift transformer, you got it from the Netherlands instead of China?
That's one of the
considerations.
Yeah, one of the considerations.
The other one was warranties. They're not going to back them up.
And just kind of to go in that brief, I don't know how much time we have, but
we can go.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a what we call, it's a phase shifting transformer, and the way utilities are interconnected through high voltage transmission lines. One way to kind of govern the flow of energy over a line is to put a phase shifting transformer in, and we've got one up here in Las Cruces area that is connected to one of our lines, and we had one fail, probably 2011 I think, or 2011 or 2012, and we had to replace it, and we went out for bids on these things, and they don't even make them in the United States.
Right.
These are huge machines, huge, I call them machines, but huge transformers, specialty transformers. And we had bids from China and from the Netherlands, and there was one in Germany, I think, as well. And we eventually chose the one in the Netherlands. But part of that concern was, the cybersecurity part of it and the warranty of it. I mean, if something goes bad, we want to make sure that the laws between us and the country that we buy it from, that
right.
They honor our warranties and things like that. So it's a very interesting time to be in our industry.
How did you get that monster transformer on site?
So that's an interesting process. We purchased this transformer, and it arrives in pieces.
Okay, because it's too big to move on a flatbed truck.
Exactly. So it had to come. We eventually did. Altogether, you couldn't move it.
Right.
So it comes in pieces, and when it's finally assembled and on site, it is filled with oil.
Right.
Okay. So of course, you're not going to ship it with a bunch of oil in it. It's extra heavy. The interesting thing is, they are so you have to be very particular how you ship these things. They put it on rail and got it to the shipyard, and the whole time they've got shock monitoring devices on this thing, so it's recording everything that happens to it. So if it's jolted real big or real heavy or something, there's a lot of electrical windings inside these transformers.
Is this where you told us that these are hand wound?
Yes. Yeah. And so,
incredible.
Yeah, it's something to go to a modern manufacturing place, and you always think of things being mechanically done. Right. But these are general. The cores of these things are hand wound, and they're very precise, and it's an intricate process. But when these things are shipped, they ship with these impact recorders on them, I guess they call them. Right. And they get on site. We look at the recorders, and if they've had a bump that was above our specifications, we send it back. Yeah. And so this is all insured and right. The whole process. And they get it here, and we had to move it from the rail yard to the substation. That took an extra heavy load-bearing truck, and we had to get all the permits for crossing the bridges to get these. It was crazy, and it was really. But we finally got it assembled, and it is just a huge, very well performing.
Yeah, good. Yeah. For the company. So you might say you bought it. Some assembly required. Yeah. You will need these tools.
Yeah, but that was also part of the warranty. So when you buy it from them, they will warranty it, but they have to assemble it. They don't give it to you in pieces.
Right, because that could be your fault. And
yeah, they want to make sure it's they've assembled this by their manufacturer. So
very good. Yeah. So I guess getting back to the one problem of the renewables. Well, there's lots of them. Okay, the biggest solution is efficient storage. I mean, that's going to be the requirement to get everything on renewables. If you want to say in the future that's got to happen, you got to have storage. And right now it's somewhere between 2 to 4 times more expensive than is supportable.
So so the major problem that we have with the major renewables that we think of, I'm going to throw geothermal out because geothermal is kind of in the conventional category to me because it's,
you mine it, you don't renew it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So a renewable resource, whether it's solar or wind, the major problem that utilities have is the intermittency. Right. Of the resource. And for example, you're going to get about, I think it's on average, you can ask somebody like Melahonic of Sunspot Solar. He can give you all these information, and he's very, very knowledgeable. But you're going to get about 7.5 hours of generation ability out of this solar generator per day, on average. Yeah. There's going to be some days where it's better than others, and we've got a lot of cases, and be happy to show it to anybody, where in the middle of summertime, if you had a partly cloudy day, you can have a 50 megawatt resource that drops in a matter of seconds from 50 megawatts to 5 megawatts. Right. Okay, well, when that happens and it's connected to the grid, some other generator has to pick up that load. Right. Or else you start a frequency decay, and then you go into this whole cycle of things. So, and wind is notorious for being a good resource in some areas at night, and not necessarily during the day. Right. And for us, maybe for the utilities it's different, but for us, we're a summer peaking load, and we're summer peaking during the day. Right. So the intermittency, and one of the ways that the industry has solved this is by partnering these solar generators or wind generators with battery storage, so that they can charge batteries, and then they can ride through these intermittencies and keep the output level for the utility, which is what we want.
Yeah, well, you face an intermittency problem not related to renewables, and it's border steel, right? Oh yeah, So that
border steel represents a big load, and then in the summertime they'll turn on and turn off, and we'll see.
What did you say, 36 megawatts or something?
It's about, I'm not sure about that, but it's in that range of 36 megawatts, and it'll swing, from 1 minute to the next. Right. The extra load. Right? Yeah. So.
And how do you ride that out?
Well, so that's kind of the beauty of the way the grid is designed and the way it functions, is that all these generators are interconnected. So when you see a big load like border steel or one of these others come online, and tends to want to pull down the system. Well, this generation has automatic functions. It fills the load and it starts ramping up. Mm-hmm. And then we're interconnected with other utilities, so those generators, the utilities help too.
Right.
And so we're pushing and pulling on other utilities all the time.
But you're basically hoping that